Welcome back. A brazen shooting last September in a Dorchester barbershop and other acts of violence are examples of what propelled Paul Goodnight and several other artists to create Cancel Violence, Artists Speak. It's an exhibition and a space for dialogue about intra-community violence, now on display at the Museum of the National Center of Afro-American Artists. Our Jessica Brown has more.
This is an exhibition that interrogates the question of violence in our communities and relates it to memory, because this is also part of the Unmonument project that has been moving forward here in Boston.
Unmonument is an initiative of the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture that refocuses public art from the historic aperture of white men to include the stories of women and people of color, a more accurate reflection of the community. Barry Gaither is the curator of Cancel Violence.
We look at particular episodes, as it were, or narratives within that, in the context of two questions. These questions are, what are the causes of violence, and how can we move towards wholeness?
Renowned artist Paul Goodnight is credited with creating the framework for the artists.
First work, you would see a pair of girls who fall victim to senseless violence. You see the face of a boy who is the one causing the victimization. And the whole thing is sort of woven over a chain link fence. When you look in the second work, the chain link fence has become African textiles. The two girls who were senseless victims in the first are now reinvented as almost magical girls.
7 other artists contributed works to Cancel Violence: Hakeem Rakib, Janetta Tinker, Shay Justice, Lawrence Pierce, Rob Stoll, Lamerchi Frazier, and Rob Pro Black Gibbs, whose piece, Grow On, Flow On, speaks to knowledge being a tool to cancel violence.
The Sankofa bird reminds us that wherever we are today and wherever we go tomorrow will require that we look back and understand where we are coming from.
Since the exhibition opened in the fall, organizers have hosted several public conversations, including one at Roxbury Community College about the father and child reading sculpture by John Wilson.
That sculpture speaks of male-to-male nurture. And male-to-male relationships are one of the many issues that we confront. A lot of violence is itself the product of mistaken masculinity.
And another sculpture by Roxbury artist John Wilson called Eternal Presence sits outside of the National Center for Afro-American Artists. And now the Museum of Fine Arts is offering a deeper look into Wilson's work in a groundbreaking exhibit rooted in themes of community, family, and social justice.
Mastery is a form of activism and a form of resistance. And that's the kind of discipline it takes to leave a legacy like this.
Artist Equa Holmes is talking about the late John Wilson. The Museum of Fine Arts in Boston is presenting the largest ever exhibit of his work, Witnessing Humanity, the Art of John Wilson.
The way he's able to create volume on a two-dimensional surface. In a few lines, he's able to describe not just an object or a person, but an emotion.
Born in Roxbury in 1922, Wilson was a graduate of the School of the Museum of Fine Arts and a beloved professor at Boston University. Global recognition for his work is long overdue, says Edward Saywell.
And about 5 or 6 years ago, we made a commitment to try to create a collection of record. We wanted this exhibition to center John Wilson back into the canon of art history.
Saywell is the MFA's chair of prints and drawings and co-curator of the exhibit. He says much of Wilson's work underscores Black visibility.
His portraits, his focus on family and friends is about giving gravitas, giving dignity to individuals that had not had that chance in the history of art. He's somebody who focused on issues that were so incredibly important to him. Issues of economic precarity, social injustice, racial violence.
On On display are 110 works covering 6 decades of Wilson's life, starting at age 18. Wilson did it all: sculpture, paintings, drawings.
So this is a picture of me. I was around 5.
Dr. Erica Wilson is John Wilson's daughter. She has a deep love and appreciation for her father's work.
The hands that he creates, they're often oversized, and I think that represents the way we use our hands, the importance of hands for work, for creating, but also for embracing and loving each other. He was relentless in his need to create images. He went to the studio every day, including up to his death. He had dementia, quite disciplined, at the same time with an incredible kind of exuberance and ability to improvise.
But one of the things I love about it are these strong arms that have created sort of a frame around the child.
Holmes is a longtime friend of the family.
He was one of the giants of my era. His generosity extended beyond his family, beyond his students, to the larger community. This is a life that will be like a huge stone in a pond that will ripple and ripple and ripple for so long.
The narrative that goes through his whole life, the importance of community and family, his insistence on the humanity of Black people and the community he came from, is a message that is timeless and also quite important for where we are right now.
Wilson passed away in 2015. This exhibit runs through June before moving on to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York.
He created a sculpture called Eternal Presence that sits out in front of the National Center for Afro-American Art. And I walked through that door and I saw the maquette of Eternal Presence, and then I saw my dad's picture on the wall. All of a sudden, the meaning of that word switched in my mind from the name of that sculpture to the eternal presence of my dad and his work. And that was deeply, deeply meaningful to me, and I hope his legacy.
And thanks to Shayna Seymour for bringing us that story. Witnessing Humanity, the art of John Wilson, is on display through June 22nd. The MFA is hosting several in-person and virtual lectures and guided tours, including Conservation Up Close, John Wilson's Sculpture Technique on March 27th. And Cancel Violence, Artists Speak is on display Fridays through Sundays, 1 to 5 p.m. through April 27th at the Museum of the National Center of Afro-American Artists in Roxbury.